So, good evening and welcome to our monthly national virtual gathering. We stream live here every month on the first Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then our live stream is posted to our YouTube channel in 2 weeks. And you can find that channel at NLHGORG over on YouTube. The National Ladies Homestead Gathering is a national nonprofit where women share and celebrate all things homesteading. Whether you're raising quail, gardening, quilting, or somewhere in between, you belong here. We have 22 chapters nationwide, plus this vibrant online community. Visit www.nlhg.org to join. It's absolutely free. Just to review our purpose and our mission, the purpose of NLHG is to empower women through homesteading. Our mission is to share knowledge, build community, and grow friendships. And if you're a member of one of our local chapters, you see exactly how that operates. My name is Nancy, and I have the pleasure of being the media director for NLHG, and I am so glad you are all here tonight. So a couple quick announcements before we get started. Our VIP partner spotlight this month is Upper Left Trading Company, which is a small ingredient conscious business where they prioritize sourcing locally first where they can and organically labeled second. Check out their line of well-loved dry shampoo, lotion bars, and thoughtfully blended oils using familiar ingredients you can recognize and trust. Our VIP members get a 15% discount, and details can be found in the VIP vault under the member discount section. Becoming a VIP means you're supporting NLHG and enjoying exclusive discounts and resources. So you could join as a VIP, or as we like to call them, very invested partners, for just $35 a year. And that information can also be found on our website, www.nlhg.org. April is our annual VIP Appreciation Month, and I have the privilege of announcing Joyce Halderson from our Bonner, Idaho chapter as our Week 1 VIP winner. She will be receiving a homestead library from Chelsea Green Publishing. Winners for the rest of the month will be posted on our socials and here in our private community each Wednesday throughout the month. And as you probably saw in the waiting slides, don't forget to check out our swag shop. We have some new merch. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and invite our guest speaker. So hold on just a moment. As she's joining, I just want to remind you to please post your questions in the chat. Myself and the moderator will be reviewing those during her presentation, and then we will have a Q&A at the end, probably like the last 10 to 15 minutes. So let's welcome Kody Hanner from Homestead Education as our April National Virtual Gathering guest speaker. Hi, Kody.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you for having me on.
Sure. So before you get started, which I'm super excited to hear all about this topic of, are we raising the last generation that knows how? I'm excited to hear about that. I wanted to ask you a quick question though, just like, what does homesteading mean to you personally, and how has it shaped your everyday life?
Homesteading has been our lifesaver, literally, and it's having purpose in a way that we were designed to.
Mm-hmm.
As far as everyday life, thank goodness we like doing this.
Right? It's like your hobbies with a purpose, right?
Exactly. I mean, everyone says, isn't it so much work? And I said, not when you like what you're doing.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I will mute myself and turn off my screen, and you could go ahead and begin sharing your presentation.
Great. Well, hi, ladies. I really appreciate you having me on today. I'll start my slides here in a minute, but first I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and my family and how we came into homesteading. I grew up on a cattle ranch in California. I majored in agriculture, and ended up working in commercial ag for about 10 years. And around that time, my husband was diagnosed with end-stage liver disease. We were actually told that he only had a year left to live, and we were in our early 30s. It was devastating, life-changing. I don't even know what to say. I had just lost my dad and my brother in the 2 consecutive years to that same disease. Unfortunately, my husband's, we had nothing to pinpoint what was causing it. So after this sobbing phone call to VA doctors, and I'm pretty sure they just wanted to get me off the phone, they told me that if we lived a cleaner lifestyle, that it may improve his quality of life for the time that he had left. And I was like, thank you. I have an answer. We dove in. I mean, we were already small scale farmers. I thought we were home cookers, but I learned that we needed to go back about 10 steps. But we dove in head first. I mean, there's a picture of me sitting in our old kitchen with every single appliance possible sitting around me in cookbooks and liver disease diets. And there was like chicks in the like brooder in the corner of the kitchen. I mean, we were going all out. And at that time, we decided to buy a much larger farm. We now live on a 40-acre homestead in North Idaho, where we have been blessed and put in the work to grow or locally source about 75% of our food. And during the course of that time, 2 years ago, my husband was given a 100% clean bill of health. The doctors said they have never seen a liver in his condition turn around to the point that it did. So we just feel so blessed that we were able to go down this journey where we are growing all of our own food, we're processing it right in our house, we're turning to more holistic medicines and making our own cleaners, and it has obviously been a blessing to our family. However, during this time, I was also trying to homeschool my kids. And even though had worked in commercial ag for 10 years and grew up on a farm, turns out raising 1 cow is nothing like raising 300. I had no clue what to do with this poor dairy cow. And I mean, that was just one of the pieces. And I was like, how am I going to learn how to raise this dairy cow, milk her, process her milk, preserve her milk? How is it safe to feed this milk to my kids? I mean, that was just one example of all the different things that we were doing. And so I started teaching my kids their homeschool from start to finish of homesteading and processing all of our food through the lens of agriculture. That's how we got our science and our math and our history and all those things. And I realized that like when like the pandemic hit, that there were so many people out there that didn't feel confident in their own skills in being self-sufficient, and they also didn't know how to provide that education and that importance to their children. And that is how the Homestead Education got started. It was completely to help you answer the questions that you don't know to ask, and then how to build confidence in yourself so that you can teach your kids the skills that we were never taught. So I'm going to go ahead and pop into my slides, and because I spend half my time in a barn and half my time on a computer, there's probably a really good chance I'm going to mess this up. All right. So, are we raising the last generation that knows how? We were we are the first generation. I don't know, maybe that's me, maybe a little younger than me, a little older than me, that are being asked to raise kids with no skills, with no purpose, no connection, and no idea to how the world really works. And then we have to sit back and wonder why our children are struggling. Maybe your individual children are doing great, but when we look at our children as a society, the ones that are going to be running our country, that are going to be working in our food system, making the choices that every generation ahead of us is going to have to make, it's really concerning to look at how little purpose these kids have. And the lack of purpose is extreme. I mean, we can dig into, um, what are idle hands capable of, but I'm going to tell you, idle minds are worse. I have felt that pull for something tangible myself for years. And, I'm always finding myself finding little projects where I can do needlepoint in the evening or read a new book or something. And I realized that as a woman, I was not giving myself the purpose that I needed, even as a wife and mother. We are designed to be creators, to hunt for our food, to protect our families, to fill our days and our lives with purposeful tasks. And children without purpose suffer from anxiety, depression, behavioral issues, and ideologies that are designed to polarize and weaken family and community bonds. Academic busywork and social pressure do not take the place of pride and purpose. So even though we're able to teach our own kids, as a society, that is not the priority. So what happens when we don't give our children purpose? Women without purpose end up feeling inadequate in their lives, unable to understand what we are missing. When our children are essentially being raised by someone else, if they go to school, I mean, even if they don't, this isn't a homeschool versus public school conversation, it's our investment in our kids. Our husbands, they grab breakfast on the way out the door, we're door dashing our dinner, while the kids are bogged down with hours of extracurricular activities and homework that doesn't even get graded because no child is left behind. Men who lack purpose in their families, they become weak leaders. Like, what does he provide? A paycheck to cover the DoorDash? Do you know that there is literally an app that tells you whether or not you're paying for enough apps? So our husbands are going out and bringing home a paycheck to literally pay for the conveniences that we are burdened with daily. But he's not providing the core needs of the family beyond a paycheck. And then we wonder why divorce is so prevalent. Because men without purpose are replaceable. And then we end up with sons that are more likely to get a divorce and don't have that strong desire or that strong foundation within the family. We were designed to be multi-generational families that learned from each other, that learned from our parents and grandparents, and everybody was living life together. And instead, we are being individualized out in society and raised in groups, whether that's in school or at our jobs. We're not integrated together as a family or a society anymore at all. And anywhere that we do find community is often through the internet, which, of course, communities like this, where we have the ladies' homestead gathering, as women and who are homesteading, I know that we feel isolated way too often. And I'm so thankful for things like this that we have, but we see this as a benefit where a lot of our children see this as how life works because this is all they have seen. So how did we get here? I mean, this is literally the question of the decade. And as parents, we were almost stripped entirely of our role as teachers of the next generation of society, a role that has been entrusted to us both sociologically and biblically. But thankfully, we are waking up and we are getting back control of the next generation. It is believed now, like I said, this is not homeschool versus public school, but I definitely want to point out that 4 million children are now homeschooled. And that, I mean, this amount isn't even a true count because there's a lot of states that don't show how many kids are homeschooled, like in Idaho, when we don't have to unenroll our children. ESA programs, school choice funding, educational tax credits, So there's probably closer to 10 million students homeschooling, which means, and that, doesn't include kids that are taking other types of school choice options like private schools and charter schools. Parents are waking up and realizing that there is not just one way to teach our kids. They're just not blindly accepting that there's only one way for children to be educated, and honestly, they never should have been educated that way. In fact, I'm going to take you a little bit down a rabbit hole. Now, we might call it fear-mongering, we might call it a conspiracy theory, but let's just be honest. The conspiracy theory term was put into place to gaslight people into not asking questions. But what I'm going to cover with you today is factual. I'm actually going to go back one real quick. So, in 1903, John D. Rockefeller funded the General Education Board. I think we've all heard this statement that he did not want a nation of thinkers, he wanted a nation of workers. To create schools that obey authority, follow rules, monetize, work 9 to 5. The students were primarily taught a mundane version of core subjects. Do we need to know how to read and write? Absolutely. Do these skills do us any good when we don't have common sense, problem-solving abilities, or career-ready skill sets when we graduate from high school and are expected to contribute to society? Honestly, I think that the way we teach our children is upside down. For kindergarten through 8th, we should be exposing kids to everything there is in life. They should just be observing life. They should be farming. They should be cooking. They should be traveling. All the things that make them human, that make them part of a community, of a society, of their family. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be learning, their basic reading and writing, but they should just be finding what makes them a person. From there, high school should be, that's when you start specializing. And that used to be how it was. You could take secretarial classes, you could take farming classes, whatever it was, unless you were planning on definitely going to college to become like a teacher or a doctor or some sort of other professional. The students were learning through the CTE courses, the career technical education. And that should be enough for them to leave high school and be employable. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So we have a couple generations of kids that came out of high school at 18 with literally zero skills. I was college prep in high school. At that time, those state tests that they make you take, I was in the top 5% in my state in California. And I graduated from high school and had literally no skills except for what I'd learned on our family's farm, which was great if I would have realized that I could have used that to go into farming or something else. But I was told that that wasn't enough, that that was going to get me nowhere, and that farmers are always broke. So I needed to go to college or find a real job. So I thought that I had nothing to offer at 18. I do remember, however, when I did graduate from college, I went to my first job interview, and during college, I had worked at an internship. I had wanted to go into food safety with the USDA. Agriculture had always been my first love, so it makes sense that I would work for the USDA. And I ended up getting an internship working in food safety and quality at a almond processing plant. And I just fell in love with working in the plants, getting them ready for the audits that USDA or other third-party agencies would do. So my internship was great. I learned so much. I had a wonderful mentor who's now the head of animal science at Colorado State University, taking Temple Grandin's spot. And I was able to learn so much about food safety and how to get a plant ready for these audits. And I was bringing a lot to the table because I actually went to college as a older student. I didn't go right to college after high school. I had to figure out who I was for those years that I should have been, that I should have learned back in 8th grade. But there was a company in my hometown where I'd actually worked there in high school for a while that was looking for a food safety specialist to help them pass a similar audit to the one I'd helped my internship company pass with a 99% rating. And I say helped, right after I started, their quality assurance manager quit. And they're like, Kody, could you help us? And we were able to muddle our way through it and did really great. So when I went to my interview, I listened to their challenges, I toured their facility, I read over the audit that they needed to pass, and I told them, I can almost guarantee that you'll pass this audit in the 9 months that you have if you give me authority over your production staff, an $80,000 budget. And they literally said, can you start Monday? I was so excited. I mean, just ecstatic. I was going to be able to move back to my hometown. I was a single mom, so I was going to be able to get help with my kids. And I went back to my mom's house that was just a mile down the road, and my mom and my aunt and my stepdad were sitting at the kitchen table talking. And I walked in and I was so excited. I couldn't wait to tell them like every detail of what happened. And literally their faces just dropped. And they looked at me and they said, how dare you talk to a future employer that way? And I didn't know what they meant. Like I was confident and I was proud and I was bringing something to the table. And they were totally thrown back that I would walk into a business and tell them what I needed to get the job, that I wasn't just there to be a yes ma'am. And that's when it clicked for me what Rockefeller meant by a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. They had been programmed to just be well-trained workers and checking those boxes. So the idea of coming to the table with what they have to offer and selling themselves rather than begging for a job was a totally foreign concept to them. So the next thing that Mr. Rockefeller did is he funded medical schools. And then he threatened to cut the funding from any institution that used holistic, homeopathic, or herbal medicine. And this was largely because they didn't meet the patent-based model or rely on pharmaceuticals. Even though Rockefeller himself used a homeopath. So why does this matter? Pharmaceuticals are 99% petroleum based, and John D. Rockefeller was an oil tycoon. And the Rockefellers are still one of the wealthiest families in the United States, worth over $11 billion. Meanwhile, the rest of us are sick and broke. When people can heal themselves, and even better, keep themselves proactively healthy, families like the Rockefellers can't benefit or profit from your illness. And this is because you can't monetize the food and medicine that God and the earth have already given us. We're designed to stay healthy and be healed by these gifts. We as humans were given the gift of curiosity and intelligence. Why not use this to keep ourselves healthy? So I recently I saw this on Facebook as a meme or something. If children start at school at 6 months old, within one generation, society would think that children couldn't learn to walk unless they went to school. What else do we believe about that? Like, if you start looking back over the last 100 years, 120 years, what else have humans or society handed over to schools to teach our children, thinking that we are no longer capable of doing that job? So I went back. 1917, the Smith-Hughes Act provided federal funding for agricultural classes. This was it was a really cool setup. I mean, of course, they did it like the boys learned to farm and the girls learned how to can, but it was acknowledged and important that this was a part of everyday life and not just a vocation. This ended up leading to the 1963 Vocational Education Act, and then the 2006 Perkins Act, forming the Career and Technical Education, or formalizing career and technical education. But only pursuing agriculture and some of the other skills that are part of this program, only as a vocation, doesn't work for the majority of students. In fact, home ec was included in this, and so that's a really important one, but only 3% of all students who ever take an ag class in high school go on to work in commercial agriculture. But I guarantee you, all of them eat every day. So why is agriculture and home economics not taught as core subjects within our schools that has the importance of what it is, in that food is the most driving force of all of humanity until the last few years, when, I don't know, maybe our most driving force is iPhones, but those people on iPhones are still eating too. Can the average person provide these things for their family? So when we're looking at, oh, you know what? I totally missed a point. So if this is not, the reason that is no longer taught as a vocation is because it was believed at that point children would be taught these skills at home, while in school they focused on their academics, like academics only, such as math, English, and those topics. But what happened is, within one generation, nobody thought that they had the ability to teach their kids self-sufficient skills. So now we say, can the average person provide all these things for their family? Clothes, medicine, fuel, food, and water. 100 years ago, they were pretty close. But honestly, when I say that, we're growing and locally sourcing about 75% of our food, I am 100% buying my clothes at Maurice's or the feed store. We still use Western medicine. We cut all of our own firewood, but I'm absolutely buying gas at the gas station. We handle our own food, and our water's handled here on our property. Thank goodness for those things, but 100 years ago, that was something that everyone could handle. So you ask, we live in a pretty stable country, so why should we have to do all these things? Like, we don't need to prepare for a supply crash. Well, guess what? We do. In 2020 and beyond, it still hasn't stabilized. Hundreds of food plants have been closed down since the pandemic. It was drastic and obvious then, but today it's just a slow burn of thousands of jobs. Food, often live animals, are simply wasted. And when the supply system stops, the store prices rise. And most of the plants that are getting any type of help are not whole food scenarios. They are plants that make cereal and soda pop. The ones that need to be getting more support is the meat, milk, eggs, and other staple food and plants, because those are the ones that we actually need to survive. We do not need cereal to survive. But yet that's the one that is getting the subsidies. That's the one you're getting coupons for. That's the one that they're feeding to our kids in school. Honestly, regardless of how anyone feels about big agriculture, there's not really solutions or big wins right at the moment, but there are some very scary statistics in the view of food security. And that's because 3 days on average, the United States is running out of food, or could run out of food or medicine. So if you were given 3 days, how would you survive? How would your children survive? Because what people are not seeing is that for thousands of years, society has risen and fallen on the availability of food. There are ruins across the Middle East that show the story of civilization using up all of their resources and simply disappearing or moving on, leaving entire cities empty. And this isn't just an ancient story. Explorers wiped out natural fertilizers that had been perfect for centuries in the Americas. The tobacco farmers in colonial America used the land till it was reduced to just dirt. The Dust Bowl in the 30s, I mean, we're talking less than 100 years ago, destroyed a whole region, and many of a whole generation. In this pattern, one that people have always pulled through. I'm sorry, my throat's dry. People have always pulled through this. Sadly, though, I don't know if we would this time. COVID woke a lot of people up, but too many people are becoming complacent again. I recently spoke to a family who told me that prepping wasn't even on their radar. Like, not even toilet paper. I mean, do you not remember life during lockdown? I mean, I'm not saying that everybody needs to become a prepper. Like, you only need like 2 or 3 years of ammo in the basement, um, or 2 or 3 months worth of food. I mean, just to be reasonable. What if we have a power outage? I saw a lot of people are from Idaho or North Idaho here in this group. And I don't know about you, but I can lose power for a week at a time easily. And sometimes the roads are bad enough that I'm not heading to town to buy every little thing that I need. So, what can we do? Your children don't need to know how to do everything, but they do need to know how to do something. So, how can we change this for them? We need to just get them involved in doing. I had read a parenting book a while back that my daughter was actually listening to it with me. We like to listen to stories in the car when we're traveling. And she's 17 now, but I'm not going to tell you the name of the book because I really thought it was terrible. In fact, to the point that my daughter actually, like in one point of the book, she like turns to the radio and she's like, "That's not how you raise children." So I'm like, okay, like if she's getting it, I can't be the only one who is a little thrown off by this book. But I love the woman's research, but her execution of it just wasn't working. However, one thing that she learned across all of her studies is that children should not be taught that their place is in the other room on a tablet or watching TV. Their place is right there with you. And if you teach them that their place is somewhere else, that's where they're going to be. And when you're ready for them to come back and learn how to cook a meal or clean up in the kitchen, not only are they not going to know how to do it, you're going to get a lot of pushback. So, first of all, be humble enough to learn. And this is a mindset. If you don't know how to teach them, learn to do it yourself first. Or even better, learn to do it together. Show your kids that it's fun to learn these new skills. Like, I can't see everybody, but, privately raise your hand if you have ever baked a loaf of bread. I'm pretty sure in this group, most of you have. But I mean, does it make you feel good every time you bake a loaf of bread? Because I know it does for us. But the other day, my mom called and she asked what we were doing. And I said I was working on doing some writing and that my daughter was in the kitchen baking bread. She bakes about probably 6 loaves a week. We do it in the bread machine. We kind of cheat. We do the dough cycle and then we let it rise. It's what works for our family. When there's 6 kids in the house, I'm not needing every loaf of bread. And my mom, like, must be nice that she knows how to do that. My mother never taught me how to bake bread. And I laughed and I was like, yeah, neither did mine. She wasn't the biggest fan of that one. But you know what? The way I look at it is my mom never taught me how to bake bread, but that was not something that stopped me from learning how to do it myself or passing that wisdom on to my kids and even my husband. The next one to think about is it's okay to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Show your kids that it's all right to get outside and work, to push yourselves, to be in the sun or the cold, to get a little dirty, to be a little sore, to learn new things, to do things with your hands and whatever it is. Show your kids that it's okay. If you're constantly like, oh, we can't work outside today because it's raining, or that's never going to teach them that sometimes things just have to be done even when you're uncomfortable. One time we had two sows farrow a week before I thought they were supposed to. My husband was working out of town, and these sows were pasture sows, but it was in the middle of December. So I needed to get them to the barn into their farrowing crates. And at the time, I didn't have farrowing crates because I had torn them all apart in the fall to sanitize a pen and never put them back together. You know how that goes. So my kids and I are literally out there in a snowstorm with piglets in a stroller because we couldn't find the wheelbarrow. Piglets in a stroller, pulling them up the hill while these sows are following the moms or following their piglets in the wagon. And my kids and I, we put them in a side pen and we built two farrowing crates. Like, I'm not talking like the metal ones that all just hook together. We make our farrowing pens, they're out of wood, and then we have some shelters and stuff. We literally rebuilt these entire pens by hand, just me and my kids, in the middle of a snowstorm before it got dark. We were exhausted. We were soaking wet. We were freezing cold. And we never felt better about ourselves. We were so proud that we got this done. In fact, I posted a little reel on the internet of all of us standing in the barn office eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and just like laughing about it. All of our fingers were beet red. And we still talk about how much fun we had that day, that they didn't know that mom knew how to work the grinder, and like they're taking pictures of me using the grinder on the hog panels and sparks are going everywhere. They wouldn't have remembered if they spent that day just sitting inside watching TV, but they also learned that they could do it because then I needed some more work done, and I feel 100% comfortable telling my kids, go up to the barn and handle that. Another one is don't blindly hand them a phone. And it's not because I don't think that they should see, I don't know, cuss words or inappropriate music or whatever, because, kids are they're going to hear it. It's just one of those things. What I'm worried about is them being a part of a culture that relies on systems. One that says there's always going to be a fallback, that someone is always going to catch you and handle it, because that's not always the case. Sometimes you are the only one that can take care of you or your family, or maybe, certain aspects of your community. But if everybody believes that there's someone to just fall back on, or something or some service to fall back on that isn't their community, that relies on each other, then everybody's always going to not have a fallback for themselves. And fear, competition, whatever we want to call it, that is what drives people. No one's going to work harder if they're told, work at a mediocre level and we'll pick up the rest. It just doesn't work like that. And all these things I talked about, like being uncomfortable, this does not cause trauma. It builds character. So let's look at some really specific things that we can do with our kids. And some of them seem really small. And some of you might be like, my kids are working outside with me from morning till night, like rock on, sister, I'm right there with you. But there's definitely some of us, and some of that has been myself included, where I'm like, how do I get them involved and not just make it constant chores? So one thing I always say is that chores are an obligation, responsibility is a privilege. We are privileged to have the opportunity to pass on these skills, to learn these skills together and make them part of everyday life, where our children take like responsibility in that. So one thing we do is my kids make their own snacks. Now, I'm not talking that they go in and they cut some cheese and, get like an apple and they made their own snack, because most kids are capable of doing that. If my kids want, I don't know, pizza bagels, they'll see them in the store. Mom, can we get some pizza bagels? And I'm like, no, but we can get the stuff to make pizza bagels. And they will come home. They will actually make their own bagels. They will make mozzarella cheese from the cow. They will fry up some of the sausage from the pigs that we butcher. And they make their own pizza sauce, and they will either cook them or freeze them. And they are so proud of themselves. they'll make Cheez-Its and chocolate chip cookies and homemade yogurt and all that stuff. And they get in there and they do that a couple days a week, and it's exciting for them. Our kids all the way from at home right now, we have 6 through 17, but we have 2 older boys that are in their early 20s. And that used to be so exciting for all of them. They would plan all week which snacks they wanted, and they'd make their list when we went to town. And if they didn't know how to make something, that was part of the things we did together as a family. And it has been a huge bonding experiences for them, but it also makes it where they they appreciate what they have a little bit more. Because how many times have you come home from the store with a box of chips or something, and the kids literally eat them before dinner time, and you're like, why did I spend all that money for nothing except for now I have chip wrappers all over the floor? I would much rather have flour all over my house than chip wrappers all over the floor. The next one is my kids plan their own homeschool year. I don't always look at educating my kids as I'm the teacher and they're the students. We're a family and we're in this together. Their education is much of their responsibility as it is mine. And so from a young age, they're choosing their own curriculums with guidance from me, obviously. But my older kids, they choose their curriculum. I say, make me a spreadsheet of how you plan on doing your school for the year. They turn that back into me and I help them meet that goal. If they're sick for a week, we have wiggle room. They let me know how they're going to make it up. And that way they have a full year to do that. And they learn that skill of time management, planning, and then catching up and meeting deadlines that they're not really teaching in schools much anymore. My kids are encouraged and taught to help their neighbors. If we have a neighbor who needs firewood brought in, or a tractor fixed, or a kid pulled, or like goats, if they call myself or my husband, one of the kids has to come with us. That's just kind of our rule. And it's gotten to the point, now as my teenagers get their licenses or we have the ATV, a neighbor calls and needs something. If we're not home, the kids are out the door to do it. And sometimes they'll see that we're busy working and tell my husband and I, like, oh, we got this, we'll go help. I teach them about local food, how to barter, how to find the things they need. We go down the list, we decide what we want to grow, what we want to get from neighbors. And we do this every year so that the kids constantly see food as part of their everyday life. And not only are they growing it, that's how they are connecting with their neighbors and their community. And that's part of their economy too. It's not just all about cash. It's about trading with neighbors. And anyways, it takes it to a whole nother level. I also teach them about entrepreneurship, and I encourage them to start businesses from a really young age. I know a lot of homeschool families talk about this, but it's so easy to do on the homestead. My older son runs our raw dairy completely. He wanted to start raising or showing dairy heifers in 4-H when he was 12. He's 17 and a half now. The third generation of our dairy girls were recently just born on our farm. He got his raw milk certificate. I made him take a food safety course. He learned how to handle all of this. He helps me market, and we split the money 3 ways for the farm. A third goes to him for pocket money, a third goes to us for, paying for feed or for, it being our land and, all that type of stuff, the inputs on that. And a third goes towards buying, hay and other supplies, jars, anything else that we need. Independence. I really encourage my kids to, take that initiative. Like a neighbor calls and says, I have a kid stuck and I don't know how to get this baby out. And my daughter's like, I have the confidence to do this. And she's in the ATV and she's gone. And I'm like, she's probably going to handle that better than me. So off she goes. Another one is the more trust they earn from me, the more responsibility I give them. A lot of people think that's crazy, but think about a little kid who's like, I want to be the one who feeds the chickens. And then you turn to them and say, well, once I can trust that you'll feed the cat every morning, I'll let you start feeding the chickens. every bit of responsibility that they earn, they get more, and they crave that, especially when they're younger. And eventually, as they get older, you still see that. I have my 17-year-olds being like, "Hey, can I take over handling this part?" And I let them do it. Um, I always like run out of time on this part, so look these over. But one of my favorites is chaos to control. Do you ever have those days, like as moms, we feel like everything's falling apart, the house is a disaster, like the kids haven't bathed in a week, um, there's a fence down and the kitchen's a wreck, and we're not going to make it to baseball practice and everything. We sit down and I get out the whiteboard and I have everybody list all the things that cause chaos for them. And then we work it out together. We talk about, how we can help each other. I really encourage each of the kids to take one of their siblings' chaos and fix it for them. One of them is that my daughter hates cooking in the kitchen when the kitchen floor is dirty. My son goes, I'm the one who makes the kitchen floor dirty when I bring in the milk every day. So when I get done, I will sweep the kitchen floor. That makes it where they communicated with each other, they found a solution, and nobody's frustrated because they're having to fix something that already bothers them. It also makes it where sometimes there's things on the list that we don't get into, but we listen to them, we give advice, and then we just say, okay, like that, thank you for sharing. And this really helps with communication with, future employers, future spouses, friends, whatever it may be. It really gives these kids the connection and everything they need, the responsibility, the independence, and the drive to take some sort of ownership in where they need to be for the next generation.
Kody, you got about 5 minutes or so.
Perfect. I was just thinking that.
Okay.
So what I always remind them is if you control the food, you control the people. It is their responsibility to not be controlled. Now, luckily, we live, and I'm sure many of you live in a place where so many people are homesteaders, homeschoolers, and they're valuing the skills that we're teaching our kids and they're supporting us in this journey. I know that many people that I know and myself have people in our families or in our communities that don't support having our kids pursue these endeavors. So be thankful for the people in your life that support that. And it's okay to not feel it when somebody else isn't supporting it. What we need to realize, though, is if we don't make these children, or if we don't make these changes, we already made the children. Our children have zero hope. This conversation is literally about preserving our society. If you guys want to find me, I have, lots of information out there. I have my podcast. I write a homeschool curriculum on agriculture science that focuses on small scale farming and self-sufficiency. I help with businesses, and occasionally I have a really fun conspiracy theory that I like to share with you. So I really hope that I get to hear from all of you, and thank you for having me on, and I'm excited for your questions.
That was great, Kody. Thank you so much. So
Thank
yeah, we
you.
have some questions. The first one comes from Rachel, and she wants to know, what kind of resources do you use to teach them about agrarian society?
Mine. No. I didn't dive really deep into this, but yes, I do have an agriculture science course, and then I also teach I have agriculture history courses. But with my kids, I really take every opportunity that I can to share with them what I'm reading. Sometimes we'll pick up a YouTube video, and every time they have questions, like where did this come from? How did this start? I either take the time to teach them, or I say, why don't you guys go find that answer and come teach me?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
that's been
that's
a
a good
really great
way.
way of doing that.
Yeah, because sometimes just researching stuff on your own really teaches you more than just hearing it from someone. So
Absolutely.
I
Even if
like
I know
that.
the answer, I make them go do it.
Yeah. So one thing I did getting ready for your talk was I asked our ladies in our online community to name 3 skills that every child should know before adulthood. And I got quite a few responses. And kind of the top 2 I wanted to share with you are growing, preparing, and preserving food. And the second one was budgeting, saving, and investing. And it was really interesting to see multiple women post the same skills that they thought were important. So if you're new at this, and what do you think would be the very first skill that you think a mom could focus on teaching their kids?
I find it interesting that those are the 2 because I feel like that's more of a reflection that kind of just goes back to what I was saying is when we were no longer taught it, we don't have that ability to teach it to our kids.
Mhm.
So what I always do, our kids sit down with us and we do quarterly farm meetings where they go over the farm budget with us. We discuss our family budget with them within reason. I mean, sometimes, kids don't need to know every detail, but, I
Right.
let them know like, hey, money's a little tight this month. How are we going to plan our meals? Money's a little extra this month. Where should we invest that? And we have those talks with them and I have them run the numbers with me. Um, the older kids, like they get a copy of my spreadsheet and we go through it together. The younger kids, I just have them run the basics.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really shown a big one with them when it comes to budgeting, because I feel like they are using a working budget themselves, not just something that is theoretical.
Right. And your son being the entrepreneur with running the milk
Hmm.
business, then he's learning that firsthand because now he's seeing the fruits of his labor, and he's probably wondering why like so much of his paycheck is going away, right? Like we all do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my daughter, I didn't really mention this part, but she runs all the logistics and shipping and stuff for our curriculum business.
Hmm.
So, I mean, she's constantly, touching the budget with that because she does so much ordering and needs to know when she can order and that type of
Yeah.
stuff. So, I mean, it makes such a big difference. As far as the canning and preserving, there is so much. I mean, I think we could go down that list for hours, but
Right.
just pick one, maybe one that they really like applesauce or something,
Hmm.
and have them do it and help you do it all the way from start to finish,
Hmm.
where they see that whole process. I mean, you maybe don't have time to plant a whole apple tree, but have them be the
Right.
ones to help you pick them or find them at a U pick or something and do all those steps with them. And I think that it just really opens their eyes to where it's all coming from
Hmm.
and learn yourself. Like I was saying, there's so many things that I'm like, man, I wish I knew how to do this. And even sometimes my daughter will be like, well, then let's do it this weekend.
Let's
So,
do it and figure it out together.
yeah,
And that's a good way to model to them too that, not to be so intimidated by something that they don't know about. And, if you can try it, especially with someone else who's very interested in the process and the journey, like just do it together. And sometimes my best lessons are when I mess up and I do it again.
right. My husband and I
So,
joke all the time that I have that gene that tells me that I don't think there's anything I don't know how to do or that I can't
mhm,
figure out. And my husband 100% does not have that gene. And so the kids see that process a lot where he's like, it's never going to
yeah,
happen. And I'm like, no, we're doing it. And then it happens.
that's good. That's good. Something one of the other ladies posted I thought was really interesting. Chandra, she said soft skills, showing up on time, 10 minutes early, showing up prepared, being able to have a polite professional conversation, right? Seek out knowledge and spend time with people, listen to their stories and let them teach you skills they know. I mean, there's so many things in that. I think just those skills that have just really got lost when you see
Oh, yeah.
there's children out there that they're too shy to talk to adults,
Hmm.
because they're either like super sheltered or they just don't have those interpersonal skills to relate to others. So I thought that was a really interesting tip.
We had that opportunity today. I bought my kids a car over the weekend. I have twins, so they have to share. They don't love it.
Mhm.
But I took them down to the car lot today and I said, "Hey, we need to have a VIN inspection done to have this car registered. Go
Mhm.
tell her." And they like looked at me like, "What?" And they were in there for a really long time. And when they came
Mhm.
out, the woman goes, "I could tell your kids are homeschooled because they came right in and said what they needed. And I invited them to the homeschool prom."
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know, because I think, so I'm Gen X, and I remember halfway through my high school years, they got rid of home ec,
Hmm.
you know? And so when you were talking about lack of purpose and like, how did we get here? I'm thinking, just that big push in the 80s where the
Yeah.
women went to work and then we had latchkey kids and came home and it was like they didn't have time. I think that was part of it too. I know my parents both worked, and just to have time
Mhm.
to kind of make your own food, it was like all about, wow, it's convenient and it's new, and look, we got a microwave. So I could see where all
And
of
look how
that
unhealthy
kind of
we are from all
added
the
to
mac
it.
and cheese we ate.
Right? Yeah, that's what I learned to cook first, right? Was Kraft mac and cheese.
100%. My mom was a single mom and I was an only child. And she worked at rock quarries during construction season. She wasn't home till 10 o'clock at night. I cooked dinner.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember cooking for a bunch of kids that I was babysitting all the time, and it was
Yeah.
good. I think I have time for one more question. Let me see. You kind of went over. So for moms who don't homeschool, what do you think is a realistic way that they can still kind of start teaching these things in the margins of having such a busy life?
Right. That's absolutely a question I get all the time. And it's be intentional about what you're doing with the kids. Like I
Mhm.
said, their place isn't in the other room away from you. Their place is right there with you. And even if they are bogged down with that hours of homework, they can sit there at the kitchen table with you and do it while you're doing the things that you need to do. On the
Mhm.
weekends, take an opportunity to do the thing like going and getting the apples and learning how to make the applesauce and taking all those steps so that that isn't a foreign concept. It's just something you do. And even better if you're making it a fun weekend outing.
Yeah. That's good. Well, I really want to thank you so much for jumping on and being our guest speaker this month. There was a lot of information packed in there. I encourage anyone that wants more information to go check out your website that has all of the additional information. And on behalf of all of us here at NLHG, I just really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I wish I could have seen everybody's faces because that's the best part about talking. But I'm so glad that I was able to share with you guys.
Right. We loved it too. So, anyway, just let everyone know next month our national virtual gathering will be on May 6th, and we're going to welcome Tawny Ledger, the Mountain Mama, and she's going to be presenting on lacto fermentation. So, be sure to join us next month. And happy Easter, everyone. And I hope you guys have a great evening, and we'll see you next month. And thanks again, Kody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mm.